Well, it would seem the companies have figured it out. Smaller form factors aren't a fringe product, but are in very real demand. However, many versions of flagships tend to lose some of what make their bigger siblings appealing in the first place. Well, Sony wanted to come along and buck that trend with a compact offering that literally just shrinks down their best device. Is this the accessibly sized phone we've all been waiting for? Well, let's find out, because it's Josh Vigard from Android Authority. What's going on, everybody? And this is the Sony Xperia Z1 Compact. Sony quite literally took the shrink ray to the Xperia Z1 and brought everything down to size. The glass finish with an aluminum frame takes the look and very premium feel that only Sony really puts out consistently and brings it to a small, easy to use and handle form factor. The button layout takes on the now classic Sony motif as the big silver power button, the volume rocker, and the dedicated camera shutter button are on the right side. Now, one thing I did want to mention in terms of the button layout is just in regards to that dedicated camera button. It is really small and really thin given that this is a small device to begin with. So when you're trying to take pictures, sometimes pressing the button down easily in order to snap your shot is not as easy as you would want it to be. The opposite of the phone has the micro USB charging port, the micro SD card slot, and the SIM tray covered with pieces of plastic, signaling the phone's IP certification for water and dust resistance. Now, of course, the main story here is the overall size of the phone. As you can see in my hand right here, it just fits very nicely in my hand with a 4.3-inch screen that actually does have a lot of Sony's pretty much signature girth that goes around the screen. They do like their big bezels, but luckily with a 4.3-inch screen, it still makes this phone not too small, but also not big enough for it to be difficult to handle at all. As far as the handling goes, I have one particularly great experience that I can use as an example, and it had to do with typing. The already pretty great stock Sony keyboard allows for easy swipe typing, but especially on the Z1 Compact, in one hand it works so well for this smaller device that typing was really just a breeze, and with one hand you could get everything you needed done, and I was able to really type as fast as I could. Now, as we mentioned, the 4.3-inch display brings 720p resolution to the Z1 Compact with 342 pixels per inch. The colors are expectedly very good coming from Sony, as its X-Reality engine behind the triluminous tech makes this look like a very tiny Sony TV, with deep blacks and very vibrant colors all around. However, in the past, this might sound like technical talk surrounding a screen that unfortunately had pretty poor viewing angles. When it comes to the Z1 Compact though, these have actually been quite improved. As you can see here, the viewing angles are actually a lot better. At certain angles, you still get that gray hue that goes over everything, but it's not at every angle like before. Now, such a small screen does pose a couple of problems, however, as some programs originally made for high resolutions don't really translate as well here. But in all other instances, even the small stature can't keep this screen from performing very well. Now, here is where the no compromises notion really comes into play for the Z1 Compact. Sony quite literally took the high-powered processing package of the Z1 and was able to put it into the small body of the Compact. The Snapdragon 800 clocked in at 2.2 GHz is backed by the Adreno 330 and 2 GB of RAM. So performance is really no problem at all for this little ball of lightning in my hand, and the very minimalistic Xperia UI does somewhat help with the user experience. Again, I have a great experience in terms of playing games on this phone. As an example, I played Riptide GP2 a lot on this phone, and they were all at the highest settings, and there was nary a hiccup as I crashed the waves. Now, much of what was offered in the Z1 is offered here as well. 16 GB of onboard storage is bolstered by the always welcome addition of a micro SD card slot. Now, the speaker on the bottom, despite looking quite meaty with that large grille, unfortunately still doesn't provide the kind of full and rich sound we'd like to hear and we feel like we should be able to hear from Sony. Call quality from the phone speaker, on the other hand, did come through expectedly well, and then connectivity to T-Mobile's 4G LTE network brought very nice, speedy, and reliable internet. Now, battery life does get a bit of a boost as this phone comes with a 2300 mAh unit inside. That might sound a little bit meager, but a lot of power-saving features are found in the Xperia UI that should be able to eke out as much power as you need. However, from a day's worth of work and play with somewhat heavy usage, I was still able to get that solid day out of it, so this phone should still be able to go the distance for you, whether it is for work or for play. And finally, I wanted to talk about the accessories that come with the phone. Yes, that was a USB OTG cable that was in the box, but I had not used one in such a long time that it really just sort of flew over my head. But it does beg the question for me though. I have only seen a USB OTG cable included with this phone and maybe one other offering in Sony's camp. With much larger offerings like the Z1 and the Xperia Z Ultra out there, it makes me wonder why dual-shot connectivity was a thought for the smallest in the bunch and not for the larger ones in Sony's camp. And the trend continues with the Z1 Compact as it comes with the same G-Lens 20.7 megapixel shooter that made a bit of a splash with the original Z1. As far as the app goes, much of the same functionality remains, including the superior auto that does a good job of getting the correct settings for your shot, and also all the add-ons for further enhancements like augmented reality, so you can really have some fun with your smartphone photography here. Whereas the Z1 camera did have some trouble with low light shots and overall the darkened portions of pretty much any photo, the processing seems to have been improved in the Z1 Compact. Noise levels remain quite high, but at least those darkened areas have a little more detail and aren't nearly as smudgy. Aside from the trouble of easily pressing the dedicated camera button at times, the easy pocketability of the entire phone and the speedy performance of the app itself makes this powerful shooter a viable companion for all of your photography needs. And finally, in software, there isn't too much to say about the Xperia UI, which I actually would argue is probably the best part about it. The mostly stock-like experience of Sony's take on Android keeps the home screen simple, the app drawer stacked with only the addition of a quick pullover on the left for some extra options, and the notification drop-down with a very simple power widget. Sony's media apps remain pretty great as general apps go, with some favorites like the Walkman and also the album gallery included. And of course, there are the small apps, which help with simple multitasking, which are easily found in the recent apps area. But what is best about the mostly stock Android build is simply how fast it goes, as transitions and moves through pretty much everything are an absolute breeze. It just goes to show you how, when you keep it simple, you keep it fast. Now, an update to KitKat will definitely improve the experience even more, especially if our time with the Xperia Z2 is any indication. And finally, we make it over to price. Now, generally when I look at a smaller device, I try to see if it is really the device for the every man and every woman. And when it comes to the Xperia Z1 Compact, it really does seem like it's too good to be true. Unfortunately, when it comes to the price, that is definitely the case. This one will come in at least $600 unlocked, and thus you have to pay the price for all of the power you get in here, as well as the ease of use that you have with it in one hand. No compromises. It really seems to be the real trope surrounding the Z1 Compact, not only on the power to size ratio on the device itself, but also on the price you have to pay for it. If large devices aren't your bag, plenty of smaller offerings are available out there now, but if you need the absolute best, the cream of the crop, well, you have to pay the high price point here. Sony undoubtedly created a little ball of lightning here, and it is one hell of a device. Technically, it might not stand alone in the smaller device space, but once you get the Sony Xperia Z1 Compact in your hand, you're going to find that it certainly feels like it does. So as always, thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this review of the Sony Xperia Z1 Compact. It just goes to show you that Sony is continuously improving their game, not only being able to make a small device with all of this power, but also improving on their camera optics. We are really excited about the Xperia Z2, but if a large phone is not your thing, this one might be for you. So keep it tuned to Android Authority for all of the best coverage. Don't forget to drop us likes on our videos because we love to see those thumbs up, and also to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. And once you're done with all of that, head on over to AndroidAuthority.com for all of the best news and coverage, because we are your source for all things Android.